So today I'm not going to do a daily check-in. I thought I'd go ahead and make a little bit of a longer video so that I could post it on YouTube because I wanted to talk about something that I'm going to do I need to do for myself. And it just kind of all ties into this, progress and not perfection. That's something I struggle with, is being a perfectionist, and it could be a double-edged sword. I mean, on one hand, it's good, but on the other side, it's just not so good. So what I mean by that is that, a perfectionist like myself, and I'm probably speaking for a lot of people that would consider themselves perfectionists, is you always feel the need to control the chaos. You want to constantly plan and track and just control everything you can about a situation, no matter what. It's a problem. It's something that I've worked on for a really long time, and I feel like I have gotten better at it, but it's also something that I really still struggle with a lot, which is why I did some introspection about how I was approaching my diet and all of that stuff, and the weighing and the tracking and it's just that was just another method of control for me. And I'm happy that it's been well, it's not been a couple yeah, it's been about a couple weeks that I've managed to stay away from it. It of course, like with anything that you build a habit around, it gets easier over time, for sure. I do still think about it. I'm still very conscious of it. It's probably never going to go away. But that's okay. So I was watching this video that this young lady did, and this girl is, and I call her a girl because she's probably, sure that she's young enough, at least, if not younger than if she could be my child, you know. So I call her girl, but she's a young lady, and she's a very smart young lady that seems to be very wise beyond her age. And I think that was because she went through some really tough things in life and had to learn how to has to learn how to cope with that, navigate that. And I like that she doesn't have a lot of followers or anything like that. She's not super popular or anything like that. But she puts out a lot of really great advice, and she was just talking about how to, I don't know how to put it. She's felt like lately she's been kind of inauthentic. Like she didn't want to get on social media and just kind of put up this facade and play out this script because that's what's comfortable for her. And I definitely resonated with a lot of the things that she said. And she gave some tips and some things that she's done to help her with this, and I thought it was some really great advice. It made me start to think about some things about how I wanted to deal with just navigating, dealing with, you know, the constant need to be perfect and control every aspect of my life. And I of course realize that, if you control the things you can control and you don't worry about the things that you can't control. That's where I feel like I have grown a lot over the years. I have accepted that. I understand that. It makes sense. I have learned to let a lot of that go, but a lot of it's still there. And it's probably, like I said, it's probably just going to be something I'm going to have to keep working on. So lately, my videos have been completely unscripted. I'm trying to be as authentic as possible. I am not editing any of my videos. That's why a lot of them seem kind of rambly. Um, it drives me crazy because I'm sure that a lot of people probably hear me ramble and just click off my videos. That's fine. You know, it may not be for you. I'm really doing this for me anyway. So, and if somebody sees this and it helps them, then that's great too. So she suggested that you make a list of things that you have value, that you value. And then I added to that some things that that kind of go with that I need to work on, that kind of works in synergy with the things that I value. So I kind of wanted to go through this. I know probably this is probably something you would want to kind of keep to yourself, but I feel like that if I put it out there, then maybe I can hold myself accountable. Um, Maybe feel like I'm not alone in this, though I kind of know that I'm not. But yeah, so you get the idea. So what I wrote down, and I'm sure this is going to evolve, but what I wrote down of what I value. So what one of the big things I value is a challenge of my beliefs or my thoughts. I love a really deep discussion about things from an opposing point of view. I may not agree, um, but it's an opportunity always. When I'm listening to somebody with an opposing point of view, it's an opportunity to learn something. For example, I have a friend who is a raw vegan. She's a fruitarian, completely the opposite of the way that I eat. And she has a lot of beliefs about around nutrition and those sorts of things. And I, of course, have a lot of my own very strong beliefs around nutrition. And mine comes from a very science backed and science based position, but also, obviously some things that I just have observed personally for me. And a lot of it's very personal for her too. Um, I enjoy talking to her. Like I said, even though we largely do not agree on a lot of things, we've found a lot of common ground. I've learned a bit from her. I hope that she's learned some things from me. I feel confident that she has. So I I challenge everybody to have that sort of a value, or have that as a goal, to not live in a silo and not live in an echo chamber, and to just talk to other people with opposing views, and always challenge your beliefs and your thoughts. I've obviously mine has changed a lot over the years, even around nutrition. There was a lot of things that I used to believe, and I used to be very dogmatic about a lot of those things. And through having a lot of discussions and listening to a lot of people with the different points of view, I have been able to grow my mind and expand my thoughts around those things. And yeah, so that's a really big opportunity, just to grow. One of the other things I wrote down here was embracing difficult things. I think it's very important that you always do something difficult in your life. And that could look differently for everybody else. What's difficult for one person is not difficult for another. I mean, difficult may be for you just making a list like this, or getting out of bed in the morning. I mean, um it's going to be different for everybody, but I think it's really important, and I value doing difficult things, challenging myself, and that could be going back to the very first thing, is having somewhat of an uncomfortable discussion with someone that you may have an opposing view with. So that could be a difficult thing. Thinking before acting, but to not overthink. So it is important to think before you act. I mean, but my problem with the wanting to control all the chaos, and not obviously want to be judged for potentially being imperfect or being flawed, which I think a lot of people fear. Um, think before you act, but just don't overthink. Um, that's okay. Yeah, you can totally do that. I think I do okay with that, but I definitely is something I probably should work on. Another value I have is strength of body and mind. So that obviously goes to physical strength and then obviously mental strength, which kind of ties back into some of the first things that I said. Um, being honest with myself, being authentic, which is why I've been doing more videos like this, not editing a bunch of stuff, just getting on here, talking to a camera, kind of telling you what I'm thinking, etc., etc. And then treating myself as if I'm someone worthy of being loved and cared for. Now, I kind of got this from the 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. It was one of his rules. And this one really resonated with me because we have a tendency to put on the mask of others before we put our own on, metaphorically speaking. We have a tendency to worry about, and I think women more have this issue than men, about the comfort of somebody else, the feelings of somebody else, and we put that above ourselves, and we just don't treat ourselves the same way as we treat other people, is basically what that says. And we need to. We actually should treat ourselves better, because if we treat ourselves better, we're going to be able to treat other people better. Um, so I don't think I'm really terrible about this, but I have been known to be, for sure. I'm better about it than I used to be. It is just something that I think a lot of us can resonate with, especially if you're a woman. I'm not trying to single women out, but we're people oriented, and we have this mothering instinct, whether we're mothers or not, and we always want to please other people, and then a lot of times we forget about ourselves. Like, we'll remember to religiously give our dogs their medication every single day, but we may forget to do the same for ourselves. So, or we'll always remember to feed our dog 2 times a day, but we may forget to do that for ourselves. And we may be really conscious about how we feed our dog and what we feed them, but we may not feed ourselves so well. And we need to just not do that. You should treat yourself at least as good, if not better, than you treat other people. And that was pretty much it. Yeah, and then I just wrote down here, do hard things. And that kind of just goes back to embracing difficult things. So those were the things that I wrote down that I value. And then I also wrote a list of some things that I want to work on, or I am working on, or I've been working on for a long time. So the first thing I wrote down was not trying to control all aspects of my life. And like I said, I think I do okay with this, but if I'm being really honest with myself, going back to the things that I value, which is being honest with myself, I don't think I do as well with this as I tell myself. And that was where all the food tracking and all that stuff came from. Being okay with chaos and uncertainty. This one I think is going to be a really difficult one for me to probably ever get completely away from. I don't think I'll ever be able to get completely away from it. But I need to be okay with it. This deciding to go, to change my career, go to college, I'd made this decision back in 2022 to do that, and I have a whole notebook, and I wrote down a plan, and I planned out a lot of my classes, and how was I going to take care of this, and what was it going to cost, and all these different things, and some of that stuff is good. Some of that stuff is actually really good. You should have at least a little bit of a roadmap, kind of a, oh, excuse me, a bit of a plan in place, but it shouldn't be super rigid, and it shouldn't be a way of trying to control everything. And you should be okay. You need to be okay if things don't go as planned, and things get a little chaotic. So some things are, have come up recently that it's kind of looking like, though maybe not, that I may end up having to maybe quit my job and start going to school full time and just finishing this and getting done sooner than I was anticipating, which terrifies me. You see it in my face. It terrifies me, because talk about uncertainty. Giving up a really well-paying, stable job and doing that in pursuit of something that I'm passionate about, and completely uncertain of the future and of how it's all going to work out, if it's going to work out, and then it coming so quickly, more quickly than I was anticipating, gave me a little bit of anxiety. Still gives me a little bit of anxiety. I'm not gonna lie. Again, be honest with myself. It does still make me anxious. But I'm dealing with it. I'm dealing with it. I want to continue to make plans. So this kind of goes with that. Continue to make plans without over planning. So it kind of goes back to what I was talking about, by this me not being so rigid and being okay with pivoting, and being okay if things just don't work out. Now, probably not bad to have a backup plan. I do have a little bit of a backup plan, but it's in limbo. I don't know. And with some things that have happened recently with my current job, who knows? That may be, I may end up being up a river and without another plan. I have no other plan beyond my plan B. I don't have a plan C or a plan D. I'm not going to do that. Everything happens for a reason. Everything usually works itself out. So I'm going to let it just kind of ride. I'm not going to try to control it. So, yeah. Which goes into my next thing I wrote down, was being okay with letting go of some control. Yeah. That it goes with trying to control the chaos. And then the last thing I wrote is telling myself that it's okay to allow for imperfection. And, I catch myself when I'm going through material for school and I'm taking notes. I'm so obsessive about how neat my notes are and everything, instead of just getting it down on paper. And I think some of that's okay, but it also is a huge time suck, where I'm just so hyper focused on making sure that my notes are perfect, and that I understand everything perfectly. And I'm never going to I'm never going to understand everything perfectly. Notes just need to be legible, and they just need to make sense. They don't need to be perfect. Something that's I'm really going to have to work on now that I'm doing more classes that are in-person lecture, and not so much classes that are online, where I was kind of allowed to take my time to go through the material a lot more slowly and over and over and over again. And I was spending hours and hours and hours, probably far more hours than I needed to be spending on that material. I think sometimes it was probably okay, and it was probably a good amount of time, but I also felt like there was a lot of time where I was just so busy about making sure that I was just, my notes were perfect, and everything was perfect. And I need to stop. Anyway, so that's kind of it. As far as where I am with my diet, I don't know if you caught any of my videos recently in the last week. I tried to have at least a meal a day that was lower fat, higher protein. That experiment went to crap. I felt like crap. I had no energy. I was constantly hungry. It just didn't work. So I think if I'm gonna try to do something like that again, I may choose to not do it for breakfast. I chose breakfast because I'm not super, super hungry in the earlier in the day, but I'm way more hungry at the end of the day. And I didn't want to do, and it was easier for me to do a lower fat meal earlier in the day than later in the day. It didn't go well. I tried it for 3 days, and I spent 3 days constantly hungry, constantly eating, going to bed hungry. I wouldn't wake up super hungry, but as soon as I had that lower fat meal in the morning, it was hunger all day long. And by the second day, I noticed that my energy was lower. The third day, my energy was absolutely in the gutter. I didn't want to move around much. I don't even think I got but maybe 3,500 steps on both days. On those last 2 days, I didn't work out. It wasn't a good time. So I've added the fat back into my diet. I don't know how much fat I'm having. I'm not tracking. I'm not doing that. But it's definitely a lot more and less protein. So less overall full food volume, but a more calorie and nutrient density. It just seems like that's what I work the best with. I feel so much better. I started feeling a lot better actually about halfway through the first day when I started adding the fat back in. My ketones have come back up a bit. So this morning I was at 0.5. I feel great. I have a plenty of energy. I don't chase ketones, but when I don't feel well, I will check them, and a lot of times when that happens, they're low. And I think it has to do with how much protein and my protein to fat ratio. So I would say that I'm probably sitting right around about 75% fat would be my guess. Maybe a little north of that. I haven't had much protein at all today. I've had a lot of fat. But I plan on having a pretty big bolus of protein later for dinner. I mostly did that because I didn't want the distraction of being hungry at all while I was in class or while I was trying to work and trying to get some stuff done. So I stuck to higher fat. So I'm probably sitting around like 85% fat today. I came home from school at about 3 o'clock, and I did have some leaner protein. I've got decaf coffee here. It's got a little bit of whole milk and then just some beef isolate protein powder. So it's not super fatty. It's fairly lean. It's giving me a good dose of protein. I had a little bit of yogurt with a little bit of protein powder, so not super high fat. A couple little pieces of lunch meat. So pretty protein heavy, not so fat heavy. I feel fine. I definitely will be ready for dinner though. And that's where I'm at. So, if this is something that you struggle with, I struggle with it too. These things, I struggle with it too. Um, this is a good thing to do. I'm gonna put this up to where I can see it and look at it every day. And whenever I catch myself doing something, you know, I'll look at these lists and I'll say, well, does this align with my values? Is this something that I need to work on? And I'll just keep working on it. Like I said, progress, not perfection. So I hope you guys found this useful. And I guess until then, I would say go out, get some sunshine. But it's pouring rain here. But I'm still gonna say it. Go out, get some sunshine, and eat a big juicy steak. I'll talk to you later.